Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kingdom Says podcast. I am not your usual host, Garrett Williams. I am actually one of your usual co-hosts, Kyle Henning, and joining me today is one of our other usual co-hosts, Mr. Arrowhead Tom. How are you doing, Arrowhead Tom?
I just got done moonlighting as a mall Santa, and
Oh,
I'm here
no
to
wonder you're so red and jolly today.
yeah, the glitter and the paint hasn't worn off. No, man, I'm doing well. Garrett is unfortunately stuck doing some other obligations. He
Hell,
does
he's
moonlight.
currently in
He
hell. He's
moonlights as
retail
an elf.
hell. That's where he is.
Oh, that too. Yeah, no, that's his actual job. I was gonna make an elf joke, but he's kind of too
Oh,
tall to be an
well,
elf.
that's fair. Yeah, he's way too, unless he's like Buddy the Elf, which
He could be. Hmm.
that's fair.
Yeah, but I'm good. This has been the pull the curtain back. We've been a busy couple of days for all of us. I think everybody is, and as I said before we started, I'm tired, and I'm just talking about these guys playing in three
Yeah,
games in 10 days. I'm not actually even
almost
playing in them.
it's almost like the NFL should have given people a little more time between games to like do things like recover, rest their bodies, have time to make content for them about these games, all those fun things. But hey, what are you gonna do,
But
right?
player safety, player safety. That's really an emphasis that we want to put on. Uh, yeah, no. And there's been a lot of talk about that. I think from both sides. I saw some, the Steelers reporters and some of their players commenting on like, doesn't really add up, my friends. And I am inclined to agree with them. Um,
Yeah,
and
man,
it
it's
really
kind of silly.
is one of those things that the league says one, and one thing is not.
Oh, they care
It's
about player safety until it costs them to not make as much money, and then they care less about player safety again. It's funny how that
yeah,
works.
yeah. To
Look,
quote, the $1 million man, everybody's got a price, and
hmm
apparently, so does player safety in the NFL. You're
Yeah,
just
I know.
making
I
that money.
remember. I think I saw Carrington post about how the NFL had said that they weren't looking to play on Wednesdays and la da 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 da, and then that was last year, like the 15th of December, and then Christmas fell on a Wednesday, and all of a sudden we're playing games on Wednesdays. So
Funny how
it
that
is what
works.
it is. Before we get too much into the Christmas game, we do need to briefly recap and touch on our Texans game winning plays and how that kind of whole thing went from Saturday. Because again, that was
Yeah.
like 48 hours ago or so. Sorry, we're probably
Well,
72 hours ago or so now. But
yeah. So hold on. There's been two sleeps since, or
yeah,
three.
barely. Doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it, does it? But so the Chiefs had wrapped their season up at Arrowhead, undefeated this year at Arrowhead, 8-0. So shout out to the fans, you guys showing up, showing out. Gotta love that. But they went in and took care of business against a good Houston team that was really built to give this team, I think, some problems for some of what their deficiencies had been, and then that
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen. So we need to we're going to be kind of brief because it's the holidays. We don't want to keep you guys here forever, and we also have
Yeah.
family and friends and things to go see and do as well. But we did want to get on and get you guys some content. So with that all said, before we get all the way into it, if you aren't already following us on any of the social platforms or on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, please go hit the like, follow, and subscribe button on any of those various avenues. It's the same handle pretty much everywhere. Kingdom Says Pod. Um, Again, if you really like the content and really like to help us out, make sure you leave us a review on those episodes or leave us a comment. Anything if we see comments and whatnot, we are able to do that. Feel free to interact with us today here. We will try to get your comments in, even if it is a brief show. It's since we're doing this
Yeah.
live. So thank you guys all. There's several of you in the chat already or in the viewers already. We appreciate you. And let's get
Yeah.
into it. Tom, where do you want to start with the Houston game?
Yeah. Well, just real quick on the interaction piece. If you leave a review and you don't know what to say, tell us about the strangest Chiefs jersey you've seen in the wild.
Oh,
I had
I
one
like
this week.
that.
I texted the boys. I said, guys, I'm like 2 feet away from somebody wearing a authentic, like stitched Dexter McCluster jersey, and I was like, man, that is dedication.
That's a
So
legit jersey. So let's do
yeah,
this. We're gonna do a giveaway. We're gonna peel back the curtain a little farther. We will do a giveaway. We're probably gonna launch it tomorrow. So that way, little Christmas spirit, giving mood, whatnot. You're going to have the opportunity to win this Justin Reed print from our friend Corey, the artist chief. He's been very gracious in letting us and a couple of other of our podcast friends like Chief Concerns and a few others give away some of his prints this year. So we've got that for you. There'll be some rules and stuff on how to enter, but your bonus entry will be for leaving a comment or a review with the Chiefs, the most what was the word you used? Most
The most obscure,
your
yeah,
Chiefs jersey you've seen in the wild, and you
yeah.
may
Not, I don't mean a custom, although the custom ones are fun. I mean, like,
actual player.
somebody actually bought that jersey.
Yeah.
Moment,
So,
yeah.
like, a Brody Croyle jersey from those days or something off the wall there.
A
So,
Chris Long jersey, that would be
yeah.
a winner.
Zane Anderson, since he's been in the news the last couple of games, he's played well for the Packers, got himself a pick in that Green Bay
Yeah,
game. So, something like that.
yeah.
But with all that
You know,
said, let's dive into Houston. Where do you want to start?
that overall, one of the least stressful games in terms of play on the field.
Yeah.
Then some injuries happened, and that caused some things. But yeah, I will take some credit because I predicted the Chiefs to lose, and when I do that, good things happen for us.
Yeah, I
So
saw
you guys
that.
are welcome.
You seem to do that when I'm not around to get on you too much.
Yeah,
about
to
doing
yell
it,
at me.
so.
Yeah, to peer pressure me. Yeah, no, I know. No, I was nervous about this team. As you said, they match up really well with Kansas City, and at least on paper, they have a really good young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Tank Dell. He obviously suffered a pretty massive injury, but he is a
Hope he
really
recovers
talented
fully.
player.
I
He's the
feel
kind of
really
player
bad for
that,
that dude.
yeah, he's the type of player that has given the Chiefs, kind of fits in the past in terms of a smaller slider guy who's really shifty. That's kind of a hard matchup for them sometimes because they've got the bigger man corners who, really rely on getting their hands on him and disrupting those routes. So, yeah, I mean, and it was a pretty evenly matched game in a lot of respects. And then, of course, some of the injuries happened, and I feel like that took a lot of wind out of the sails for Houston. Even before the Tank Dell injury, there was a lot of offensive line movement for them, struggles up front. So they're a good team. I think they're a better team than what we got, from them this last week, just because it was one of those days where the injury bugs were piling up for them. But also I said it, this last episode we recorded about this team having championship DNA, the Chiefs, and this is, and I saw that more than I saw it in any game. I mean, you do see it though, like these close games, you still got to win them, right? There have been plenty of teams that have lost multiple. I mean, there was a year where the Chargers lost half their games by less than 3 points or something.
That was last season.
Yeah, that
I think every loss they had was by one score or less.
Yeah, there's a mental component here. There's a collective component of being able to say, yeah, we're going to finish this game off. And that, I mean, you think about Tom Brady and the Patriots and that dynasty, and I mean, what was he known for? You left him with too much time on the field. You left him, same thing with Peyton Manning. Any of the greats, it was always that attitude. Nobody wants to win that way.
Not even them. They don't want to win that way.
Yeah, we'd love to have a Monday night, 34-0 blowout against the Saints.
I was gonna say the most comfortable game this year, besides this game, was probably the Saints game on a Monday night. So that kind of, that tracks. I did want to touch briefly on a couple of pieces of that. One, I think it's hilarious that we've got the narrative change that we have. Yes, he is our bearded wonder. He makes mine look very pathetic and sad. It is very nice. We appreciate that, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Shout out.
But the narrative about close games when it was the Brady Patriots was they're just the best team. It's inevitable. When it's close games, they're going to win them every time. And the narrative with the Chiefs is Well, they're just not winning by enough, and it's too close, and they've got holes and problems because they're not winning these games that they should easily win. And it's like, when did winning close become more of an issue than losing close? Because that's what we get to hear about all the other teams when they stuff kind of happens. It's the double standard approach, and if you're a part of Chiefs Kingdom now, it's the new norm for us. It's the double standard. It's Jason Anderson pointed this out. If the calls against the Chiefs, it was the right call and it wasn't this or that, or if they miss a call or don't make a call against that happens and the Chiefs player is affected, they shouldn't have called it. And if if the same thing happens the other way, it's rigged and it's this and it's that and it's the whole nine. And you can go on and see that anywhere on any of the posts about any of the penalties. It's always the same. First of all, it's always basically the same 3 to 4 fan bases. They're either have Boston in their profile or they're a Bills, Niners, or Eagles fan. It's pretty much constant with that grouping. So from that perspective, I did want to
don't like seeing us be successful. Makes sense
right.
with that fan base.
Well, people that have had suffered at the hands of both the Brady Patriots and the Chiefs now, the Bills fans especially. It's been a long time. They're getting tired of having the same repeat stuff happen to them, no matter whose helmet it is that it keeps happening to them with. So that's not out of the realm. But I did want to shout out because I thought it was an excellent thread. Our friend Joseph Hefner does a lot of work with KCSN. He put out another great thread about the penalty narrative yesterday, I believe, is when he put it out. I don't think it was today. I think it was yesterday. And it goes through, and he even breaks it down to, it's the third down penalties that extend. Well, no, it's not the third down. It's the fourth quarter penalties. Well, it's not the fourth quarter penalties. It's always the key. And he goes through and shows you in each category, it's not the Chiefs that's the most benefited from those. As a matter of fact, a couple of the fan bases that have problems with it are the ones that benefit the most from it.
Imagine that.
Yep, that's a great point, Chris. So from that perspective, go read Joseph's tweet. I retweeted it and said it was a really good thread. You can find it. I think it's at Joseph Hefner, and I'm not going to try to spell it because I can't get my Twitter to pull up on my phone right now because it's acting stupid. So it's on there. I posted it. You can go screw through my page and find it. You can also just go and type in Joseph Hefner and find it that way too. The other thing is they made CJ Stroud feel them a lot of that game.
Yeah.
And that affects quarterback play. We've been talking about it all year with the Chiefs team. His offensive line has had some issues. He has been hit more than he has ever been hit. He has been sacked more than he has ever been sacked. And there was a stretch there where he wasn't playing as well because he was getting pummeled over and over and over again. Now, we just talked about the differences between great teams and championship DNA and good teams that have a chance. That's the difference. The Chiefs win the games when their quarterback isn't playing his best and they're getting pummeled and he's getting beat up and things aren't going great. And yet when you get to when the crunch time matters, he does what he has to do and they get it done. So the championship DNA part used to be a positive and has become more of a negative in the more recent years. And it's kind of weird to see, but hey, it's part of it. We're used to it, right? We're the bad guys. So the other thing I wanted to shout out on the offensive side for sure, there's 2 pieces I really want to get to on the offensive side, and I want to start with the offensive line because we just talked about the beat-upness and whatnot. Joe Thuney stepping out to left tackle as a left guard. I had concerns. He's not got your traditional tackle length. He's moving from playing guard his entire career, basically, and usually you move from tackle to guard, not guard to tackle. That's usually the progression.
Yeah. Hasn't played tackle since college.
To step in against Myles Garrett and then go in follow that up with Will Anderson and I'm blanking
Danielle
Hunter because he was in Minnesota and that's why I keep thinking Danielle's still in Minnesota and he's not. He's in Houston now. But that is a brutal setup to have to go in and do as a guard playing tackle.
Casual switch over to a couple all-pros.
Here's your defensive player of the year last year, and then guys that are going to make the Pro Bowl or be in the all-pro conversation. And now he
Yeah.
gets to follow that up this coming week with TJ Watt, which we'll get into a little bit with the Steelers breakdown. But that's an insane ask of him, and I wasn't really sure how fair it was to ask it of him. That was so impressive. The way he handled it, no sacks through 2 weeks, like 50 something dropbacks, 49 dropbacks, I think was the stat I saw. He has been insanely good for this team.
Yeah.
Mike
And
Caliendo gets a huge stamp of like, hey, Nick Allegretti, is that you? He had one issue where he didn't quite read the blitz where Houston got home and got the sack. That was the
Mhm.
only play basically the whole game where it was like, oh, that probably doesn't happen if it's Joe Tooney. And that's fine when that's the one time it happens. Sometimes you
Yeah,
get got. Um,
you do.
and he has been more than suitable at stepping in for Joe at left guard. The drop off has not been as egregious as I thought it would be. I know there's been a lot of talk about what the offensive line looks like going forward with DJ Humphries not playing again tomorrow. Um, but I think you can't have asked for anything more than what they've given you the last 2 weeks, and we hope it just continues for at least one more game this week so we can lock up that bye and get everybody on the rest page. So I want to shout
Yeah.
out the left side of that offensive line. And then, heck, shout out Wanye Morris for stepping in on the right when Jawan Taylor goes down and doing
Mm,
really well at right tackle, which we've all kind of talked about. He's more naturally a right tackle, seems to fit
mm,
better. And we've listened to
mhm.
tackles, like the best tackles on the planet, talk about how hard it is to go from the right side to the left side or the left side to the right side when that's what you're used to. It's like trying to hit switch hit in baseball. And if you've never tried that, it sucks unless you do it all the time from a really young age. Everything's
Or
backwards. So,
yeah,
yeah,
my favorite analogy of trying to switch from the left to the right. I think this was Joe Thomas who said this. I could be wrong, but he said it's like trying to learn to wipe with the other hand.
yeah,
So next
Mitch
time,
Schwartz quoted that. Yes, that was Joe
yeah,
Thomas.
maybe that was yeah. So next time you're on the crapper and you want to know what it's like to play on the other side of the offensive line, uh, yeah, Caliendo has been great. Yeah, and having a player like that speaks to the team building and the depth that this organization has built because it's like, being able to move an all pro guard to tackle and still play. I mean, Joe Tooney is one of the most automatic linemen in the NFL. It's not always flashy. It's not always, he's not the most powerful guy. He's not the, yeah, like it is like Joe Tooney is a offensive lineman coach dream.
He's a robot.
Patrick talked about him and said, "Hey, I wish I had 5 of these guys in front of him." The thing about him playing at left tackle is, yeah, maybe he doesn't have all the physical traits and all that stuff, but he does the most important thing you can do as an offensive lineman, especially left tackle, especially blocking for somebody like Patrick Mahomes. You die a slow death. The problem with these young guys is they were just getting blown up just like that, and you don't have any time for that play to develop. It's one thing to get beat; it's one thing to get beat fast. So, or it's another thing to get beat fast. So die a slow death. That's kind of yeah, and as Chris has said, like, Caliendo coming in and stepping in, we got to give. I can't even tell you where Caliendo went to college. That's how obscure this guy is. But obviously, he played some significant snaps last year. Kyle's looking up right now where he went to college. It's going to be some weird, Fresno State Academy of Agriculture and freelance beatboxing, or what's
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. Oh, I wonder if he's teammates with Sky Moore. He might be Mike Caliendo, the best Western Michigan player
No
on the Chiefs
strays
roster.
at this point. That man is still on IR. Leave that man alone.
I'm sorry, Sky.
I do have
I
to
didn't
do
know he was
one
on
thing.
IR. I
We
thought
were
he was.
very hard. I was been very hard on Andy Heck about what has transpired with tackles over the last several years and the lack of development. I have also said that I think a lot of it has to do with talent of the players has kind of helped him in areas develop this offensive line. And having a talent like Joe Tooney makes you look good as a coach too. But he's done a heck of a job making sure everybody's ready for every position. They make certain that all these guys play all of these positions. They rotate them in practice at all of the spots. Mitch Schwartz has talked about it. Jeff Schwartz has talked about it. Jeff Allen has talked about it. The players currently on this roster talk about how they practice at each one of the spots just in case this kind of stuff happens. They do an insanely good job. It's quite impressive for them to go out with this approach and handle it this way.
Yeah.
All that said, your quarterback is playing the best football he's played all year right now, which is
Nice.
kind of what we expected. This is what they do. This is how they operate. They slow build and slow build and slow build till the end of the year, and then they peak and want to play their best football right now. So you're getting that. You're getting an understanding, and having the anchors still inside that you have in Creed and Trey helps shore up the left guard that you had to sub in and move your left tackle, and help with the right tackle when he goes down and you have to bring another guy in that has to play out there. It all works together. They're a unit. It's one of the things that gets underrated about the offensive line. It's one of the reasons I think they've struggled some this year, is because there's been so many moving pieces and parts and there's not been as much chemistry. They've got enough chemistry now with this group. If they have to, they can survive with it. I also think that if they get the opportunity, they will put DJ Humphries in when he's ready. They're going to have a lot of time between now and the playoffs for him to get ready, provided everything goes well, at least one game over the next 2 weeks. So they're going to have some time off. They're going to have some breaks. They're going to be able to do some things and work on some things. So, like I said, I just wanted to start with that, with the highlight, the offensive line. And the other thing we have to acknowledge about this game, and I'm interested in your thoughts on what it kind of means for this offense going forward, the addition of your going to be number one wide receiver at the beginning of the year back into this offense seems to have changed the dynamic of how they can attack defenses. Hollywood Brown's return, his legs weren't really ever a question for me. It was how he was going to handle getting hit. He took a couple of different hits. He made some big catches. He still destroys man coverage when you give him man coverage. What's this look like now that they have 4 to 5 viable wide receivers that can all operate this offense in obviously the big three of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and D-Hop, and then you still can substitute in with Justin Watson and Juju when you need them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, is you now have more guys to distract the defense from when you want to take an inexplicable deep shot to Justin Watson that he drops in the end zone. I swear there's been we talk about the chemistry and stuff. Now I'm red and blurry. Come on, camera. There we go. Whatever. Live TV. It happens. That's what I get for leaning back in my chair. So we talk about like the chemistry piece. I was surprised at how in tune they seemed. And I know a lot of it was kind of a situation where, they were intentionally looking at Hollywood Brown in those plays, but I think it was the third or the fourth down catch that was big. There's the first fourth down.
Right after Patrick scramble.
And Andy talked about he was, you could tell that they were kind of easing him back in, but he said, in the post game, and he's like, he's really hungry for the ball, and you have to remind him, hey, there's only one ball to go around. And between him and Travis, and we've seen, that not catch by Xavier, where he just his foot just hits his heel.
Stingley's leg bumps Xavier's foot, or that foot's down.
Yeah, that was a 1 in a million. It's so close. But he's come such a appreciate the support, Chris. Thanks for coming and showing us love. And we always appreciate the more people we have. We don't do this for the numbers necessarily, although we'll take them. We're just happy to have people here. Make sure you're checking us out, especially if you're new to us. Okay, yeah. It's
me. I did it on purpose. It's me. Noted.
Yeah, Kyle. It's Kyle. We blame Kyle for everything around here. So, and he just kind of actually. I feel like I get. Anyways, back to football. It's looking a lot better in terms of the spacing and the personnel packages. Man, I really dream about what Rashee Rice would have looked like. Like this year could have looked a lot different with that one injury. Um, yeah, but they're coming along. The quarterback is peaking. Travis is still Travis, and he's still there. He's doing his thing, and you know, they, Noah Gray has I think taken a step forward this year too, and has learned to kind of benefit. And I think Pat has increased his trust and is looking at Noah a little bit more in those types of situations. So there's weapons to be had. It's a much different situation than last year, where it felt like nobody could get open, nobody could catch anything, nobody could do their jobs right. Now it's more a matter of the protection, and also, Pat had to settle down a little bit and feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's where I go back to my comment about dying a slow death, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so much that they were getting beat, it's that they were getting beat so fast that Pat didn't have time to even come up with a game plan and adjust. It was just, all right, here's a defender in your face. He was taking more hits than we want to see him take. He was, getting beat up kind of all over the place. So I think it's a good sign to see. Obviously, the Steelers' defense is pretty good. TJ Watt,
Gonna be
defensive
back
player of the year, quality, candidate type of guy. It's going to be a challenge, but so far things are looking positive.
Alex Smith is another guy on that defense. So,
yeah.
So for me, it's the ability to run some 3x1 and 4x1s that are going to make you pick your poison, especially in man coverage situations. When they can run them in a bunch set, you're basically guaranteeing free releases for a couple of these guys, and that's a bad idea for several teams. Houston struggled with it at points. You saw they have the ability to still throw D-Hop contested catches when they need to for, third downs and for crucial things where he can go back shoulder. That toe tap on the sideline off the back shoulder is disgusting. You can't you cannot defend that. There's nothing you can do about that if you're a DB.
You're just gonna watch. That's just you. Congratulations, you have a front row seat to a Hall of Famer doing his job.
Yeah, that's a helpless feeling as a DB when you're out there and they run that and that ball, you're right in step with him, and then all of a sudden he's gone because he stops on a dime, puts both feet down, and catches the ball on the sideline. Like that stop fade on the edge is tough to deal with him. And then you watched him, free release off on the third down play to get a quick little dump after Xavier and Hollywood go out and peel out the zone defenders. It's just it makes matchups difficult. The Noah Gray comment I think is huge because Travis is 35. Okay, they did not plan on him playing 90% of the snaps this year, I don't think, but he has basically the entire year. You've kind of seen him in catch the ball and go down mode a little bit at points in time this year, and I think some of that is saving what he needs for later as far as physically goes. So I expect that to change and develop a little bit as the playoffs go. But I think the development with Patrick and Noah, which I think is why you saw them give him the contract they gave him, I think mid-season, which they don't really typically do.
They gave it to him week 1.
Yeah, so they don't typically do that. But that contract's going to look real nice as we progress forward. I have a feeling Noah Gray has developed crazily over the last 3 years. Being in a room with the guy to play the position ever helps. I think they're going to use it some against Pittsburgh, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But the final thing for me on the offense with the Houston game was Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and I think you're going to see more of Kareem Hunt as we go here, especially on third down, short yardage situations, stuff like that, where he seems to be the flavor they like. In those scenarios, you saw the 3rd and 4th and 1 at midfield that they turned the ball over on downs. That wasn't great. There were some issues there with Pacheco. The vision is tough to teach in a running back. You don't really teach eyesight. Like the run to seal the game is Kareem Hunt making too crazy cuts to get out and get loose to get the game sealing run on to get that first down and then slide down like they always do because they're a championship DNA team. Uh, I think Pacheco's going to be your attempt at home run hits, and I think they're going to start to give Kareem some of that lead back ish feel. I think they're still going to do the combo thing, but there is a nice thing to have when you have three fully functioning, competent running backs that can do a couple of different things, but also do several things similarly when it comes to those two in P Ryan. So I would just keep an eye on what's going to happen with Kareem Hunt and Pacheco as they go forward. It's just some things I'm noticing. I'm not telling you that one's better than the other, but I do think one is playing better right now, and that's kind of understandable with Pacheco coming back off a nasty broken ankle. So
Well,
feel free to disagree with me. It's fine.
I don't disagree because I don't want to take anything away from Kareem Hunt because him coming back when he came back to Kansas City has been such a
massive for the team.
Yeah, and it's been huge, and you see him running with purpose and the redemption, the story. Yeah, there's a lot there. And like when Kareem Hunt was drafted, I was one of the biggest Kareem Hunt fans you will find. I think we have to be careful, not to disagree entirely with your point, but he's coming back from a major injury.
Mm-hmm.
He is behind new faces on that offensive line.
True.
When you run an inside zone towards the guard and the tackle playing guard that he's not familiar with, zone blocking with your offensive lineman, generally speaking, is simple in concept, but in the actual play, there can be some different decisions and different reads. And I haven't gone back and broke down that play specifically, but it was kind of a weird call. I still think he should have got those yards. Like, don't get me wrong, but it was a strange short yardage call. It felt rushed. There are some takes that were I feel like pretty reactionary.
That I agree with.
To attributing short yardage woes to Pacheco exclusively.
Sure.
I don't know if that's entirely fair. So I would just say caution with that. And again, injury coming back from, behind a very different looking offensive line. There's a lot of factors there that we should really look at.
Yeah.
And so, but again, not to take anything away from Kareem, if he's the guy for that job, then yeah. Hey, you know what championship, teams do? They play to their players' strengths. Like that's
something this coaching staff has been extremely good at over the years, and it's been kind of odd this season. We've seen them get away or not do that as well at points. And I think what you make good points with A, the new faces, and B, the injury. That's why I mentioned the injury towards the end of that. There is to not say it's necessarily an indictment on Pacheco. I just don't know if he's quite at 100% yet coming back still. And I can't say that I blame him because, broken ankles with plates and screws and stuff, it's not easy. So I just from the way that they kind of progressed through that game with the play calling and the decisions they made personnel wise as it went down the stretch there, Andy's been known to do the hot hand thing, but I also do think there is a little bit of, well, we know he can do it. So if we know he can do it, we're just going to have him do it right now. And then when Pop is back to full blow, we can go back to having it be either one of them in some of those scenarios. I just think as it sits and at where we're at currently, I think he gives you a little more floor. Maybe not this. He doesn't have the ceiling because Pop is again gonna be more of your burst, big play hitter, whatnot. Kareem can still do it, just not as consistently on the big play side. And Pop gives you a little more there on that end, but that floor is a little higher with Kareem, where the success rate running the ball. You've seen the rushing success rate drop a little bit since Pacheco's come back, and there's little pieces of both the offensive line in there and a little bit of him in there. So it's something I noticed. I rewatched it again. I didn't get to full watch the game. The first time I was at a thing for a friend, and that I had to be at, and so I didn't get to fully watch it the first time. So I rewatched it last night, getting ready for this, and just some things I noticed on the rewatch. But that said, on the defensive side of the ball in the Houston game, they played pretty well against a really good team. Now, Tank Dell was getting off a little bit before he went down with that awful, and now we've gotten reports that he tore basically everything in his knee, MCL, ACL, PCL, dislocated kneecap. And unfortunately, it looked to be a little bit like friendly fire of somebody diving for the ball that he'd already caught. So that's really unfortunate. And after he went down, I think there was two pieces to it. I think it really changes the Houston dynamic from a receiver perspective. It really rattled C.J. Stroud, and the Chiefs defense tightened up, and they do that in the third and fourth quarters when it's just kind of a snowball effect for Houston in that aspect. When you've got one of your main guys go down, your quarterback's really upset because he feels like he could have done something different, or feels like that was maybe something, because everybody blames themselves even if it wasn't their fault, kind of deal on stuff like that. I've seen that before firsthand. You never want to see guys go down like that. You saw the Chiefs react and show a bunch of support too, and even on social medias after the game for Tank. So again, we talked about it earlier, but hopeful for a full recovery for him. Man's been through a lot the last couple of seasons with injuries and other stuff. So
Tank Dell is, like, on a side note, it's hard to not root for the kid. Like, smaller guy, tore up the Senior Bowl, was a really fun draft prospect, gets to Houston, played at the University of Houston, gets drafted by Houston, the cool story. And CJ Stroud talked about, Tank Dell's kind of is his best friend, and you saw how emotional he was, and the damage that knee, he actually dislocated his entire knee, not just his kneecap.
Yeah, so he did the whole thing, which is
so it's pretty brutal. I got nothing bad to say about Tank Dell as a player or whatever. So I hope that he recovers. I hope he gets to bounce back. And but obviously these players are human. You want them to recover and consider their long-term health, all that stuff. I know that he's also been, the injuries he's had, including getting shot this past offseason, have all been in that same leg. So that's something to consider for him. But yeah, obviously you don't want to see that happen. And I think that shook them. But also he was a big part of that offense, big part of what makes them run. And so, it's understandable that they would be shook by that. I think, same thing would happen if, heaven forbid, big injuries like that happen on in the game. But
the other part is CJ Stroud struggled before that. He threw two picks, and one of them was just a overthrow on one. So the defense getting takeaways is something we've talked about for years with this team, not really getting a bunch of them, and they had a waterfall of them in Cleveland, and I think it's opened the floodgates a little, because Trent has interceptions in back-to-back games after going basically 2.5 seasons without getting a single one. Jaden Hicks has, I think, 2 picks in 2 games.
Jaden Hicks was looking good.
And I think you're going to see more and more of Jaden Hicks. We talked about it to start the season. Expected him to play a bigger role, I think, than we've seen from him this year. I think some of that was Spags kind of wanting him to still develop more and get better. Well, he's better. He's probably one of your best 11 when you boil down to what the best 11 defenders you need on the field are to make plays. He makes big plays. So I think he gives you a little bit different dynamic. His size, he's a big safety. He can move. I think he's going to help provide them some answers to the tight end coverage issues that they've had. Just an all-around good performance from the secondary for the most part. A couple little things. Obviously, you're going to deal with some little hiccups with Josh Williams and Najee Johnson, and I thought CRW played really well. Shout out Charles Goldman, who has been on CRW since long before anybody else, really. He'd been talking about him since we did our training camp, basically cut down video when we had Charles on. So they are starting to round into the back there, but I think the thing that was most effective for this defense this game was what they were able to do up front and have it not just be Chris Jones. You're starting to get more and more production, and with Charles Omenihu being back, we talked about it with Hollywood Brown. We talked about it with Charles Omenihu when he actually first came back. the biggest part is they push the other guys down the depth chart one spot, and
Yep.
it frees them up to be a little more and do a little more as the third guy or as the fourth guy or as the fifth guy. And you're seeing a noticeable uptick in George Karlaftis since Charles Minute has come back. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Chris being questionable for going forward after he came down with a little bit of a calf issue in the end of this game.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what this defense looks like the next couple of weeks, mostly as when they get to full health and what they're going to do in the playoffs, because I think this defense, they're finally riding into form. Spags seals the game with a Josh Williams corner blitz that Josh was chomping at the bit to go, but he was
Oh,
also trying to not show he was the one
yeah.
coming. And I think he even talked about it. He's like, I just had to not tip it. I just had to not tip it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Don't give it.
I'm
Yeah.
super impressed with Hicks and with what we've seen since Charles Minihew's come back, what they've both been able to
Mm-hmm.
kind of add to this defense. It's been an uptick and it's been an improvement, and I'm looking forward to what it looks like going forward.
Yeah, and again, they're peaking. They're gaining momentum at the right time. I still don't think we've seen them peak necessarily.
No.
I think you see somewhat Hollywood and D Hop and all that stuff can do. This is the time of the year where we can start to worry now. If they start looking bad, we officially can sound the alarms. What a tough stretch to end the year. These last 3 games in 10 years, or 10 years. Wow. 3 games in 10 days, all against
playoff teams.
Yeah, all against playoff teams, and then another playoff contender in the Broncos, and a rival. Like there's some decisions.
I guess Cleveland wasn't a playoff
if I'm wrong.
team,
If we beat Pittsburgh, we are locked in as the 1 seed. So,
yeah, so the magic number is 1. It's 1 Chiefs win or 1 Bills loss.
Yeah. So
thanks.
You do end up with some decisions if you hit that, and do you sit for 2 weeks, or do you let the starters play a little bit against Denver? That's you let some guys play, you let some guys sit.
You mean you have to have some guys play. You can't sit everybody because there's too many spots on the field. But you definitely want to rest as many of your main guys that maybe have gotten, I don't know, far more snaps than they were planned on getting throughout the year, maybe.
Yeah. If they win against Pittsburgh, let me rephrase my statement. Week 17, week 18 is probably going to be the DJ Humphries show. We're all just watching to see how DJ looks as he's getting some snaps in to warm up for playoffs. That's maybe more ideal. It's such a long season, and getting that 1 seed is important. So I think they're in control of their own destinies. I don't know. It's a short week. I'll be honest, I haven't even looked too much at the Steelers roster. We're about 45 minutes in. Kyle, do we want to just jump into score predictions, or is there anything else we want to really get into?
Let's tap the Chiefs injury report and stuff real quick for both teams.
Let's do that.
So Chiefs have already ruled out DJ Humphries and Shamari Connor for this week. Neither one will be playing. Shamari still dealing with that concussion from that nasty hit that he took off of Nick Chubb's thigh / elbow / whatever all he hit. And I just don't think they're willing to put DJ in when they don't necessarily feel like they need to right now, and they haven't needed to because Joe Thuney's played out of his mind. Chris and Jawan Taylor are both listed as questionable. That's not ideal to go into this Pittsburgh game because that means Wanya Morris is going to probably see TJ Watt quite a bit, and it's going to be on the right side, not the left side this time, but TJ Watt's a whole different animal. I do think there's some stuff that the Chiefs can take advantage of that the Ravens did to them last week that kind of showed, or earlier on Saturday, that showed you, hey, they're susceptible to some things. Also, they've got some injuries too. But real quick, those are the 4 main ones for the Chiefs. Everybody else was full participants, and that's Creed, which shoulder, I think pretty much that's just he had to get a little bit of treatment in the training room, so they put him on the report. Patrick's ankle, we didn't talk about it a ton, so I don't really feel like we needed to. He did what he does when he has
Yeah.
gimpy ankles. He makes people look bad.
And yeah.
Hey, Tim, is he mobile enough? What
Yeah.
promise? What?
Settle
Thought
down
Creed
there.
thought
Yeah.
Creed's broken promises tweet or post on Instagram with the caption was pretty fitting,
Yeah.
pretty short and sweet and to the point. Everybody knew what he meant. It's not hard to
Yeah.
figure out.
Settle down
Also,
there, Tim. Settle down.
Mahomes breaking his tackle to go
Yeah.
score and run over and get into the end zone and score a touchdown there on the first drive for them. That
Petty
pretty
and
much
beautiful.
sums up what that is. I don't know how many times people have to learn this lesson, but do not give him extra fuel. Don't do it. Just simply
Don't do
don't
it.
do it. If you do it,
Yeah.
you're going to pay for it. It's just how it is.
Yep.
So
Every time.
that's where that is. Justin Reed, Nico Remigio, Josh Williams, Xavier Worthy, and Peyton Hendershot all on there. Xavier we saw go down a little bit in the game with the ankle. He was questionable return, and by the time he was the sideline report was being done, he was already back on the field about him being questionable. So he seems to be all right. Peyton Hendershot is IR window is opened. I don't know if they're going to activate him before the game. We'll see. That'll be interesting. They did sign Robert Tonyan to the practice squad, which if you're not familiar with Big Bob Tonyan, former Green Bay tight end, played there in the Rodgers years, was a touchdown catching machine for them. He's a interesting addition to this practice squad. That's a depth piece to keep an eye on for down the stretch here if they need it. They've gone through a lot of tight ends this year. A lot.
So many tight ends. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of tight ends that have gone down, whether they be on the main roster or the practice squad or both, back and forth, So for the Steelers, Justin Fields is questionable. I don't know. I doubt we see him. He hasn't really played in a few weeks. They had him out for the last couple of games. George Pickens is off the injury report and good to go. We will see George Pickens. That's a matchup I'm curious about because I think I'd stick Josh Williams across from him and see if he can't get George to punch him. Legitimately, like George Pickens is a hothead. It's been everybody asked why the Chiefs didn't draft him. That's why. Everybody asked why the Chiefs had no interest. He's got issues. He does things. You see it every week. You saw it at Georgia. You saw it here. You see it everywhere he's been. He's got problems, and if you get in his head, you can get him off his game. And Josh Williams is a big physical corner who's not exactly known for being nice and gentle and not afraid to get into the little scuffles. So if that's going to be the matchup, that one may be a grab some popcorn because those two are probably going to go at it a bit.
Push him around a little bit. See if we can rattle him.
Ben Skronik is not going to play in this game. Mike Williams has been resting. Joey Porter is ruled out for this game. That is a big loss for their defense.
Yeah, their corners are pretty. I mean,
their secondary
kind of thin at that spot, so that might be again a chance to open it up.
Yeah, their secondary is beat up. So Deshaun Elliott listed with a hamstring issue. Dante Jackson listed with a back issue. Both of those guys are full participants and not carrying a designation for the status. Tyler Matakevich is a linebacker. He's full. They got a bunch of guys resting. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Elandon Roberts, Isaac Suomalu, all rested, veteran rest days, full participants when they were on. And then Larry Ogunjobi growing also on there. I think this game is going to be quite interesting from what the Chiefs offense chooses to do. Steelers struggle with motion, which that's not a good combo if you're playing an Andy Reid team. You're probably going to see a little bit of motion. They also struggle with the edge runs, whether that's receivers or backs, whatever, to the end arounds, the sweeps, the jet motions. They don't seem to have a really good answer for a lot of that. And then they also struggle mightily with tight ends. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely ripped them apart last week, for lack of a better way to put it. Because when you play two tight end sets, they go three linebackers almost exclusively. And while Patrick Queen matched up and it was about 50-50 with who won between him and Mark Andrews, they don't really have a second linebacker. They didn't have an answer for Isaiah Likely, and that screams Noah Gray all day long. This may be a Noah Gray game. As a matter of fact, I've already kind of locked in some stuff on some of the sites that you can predict things on that might earn you some cash if you predict it correctly. So there's Noah Gray anytime touchdown is spicy this week. His yardage is set at like 15 yards right now, which yeah. So there's some alt lines for like 25 yards that are plus odds right now. And his receptions are set at 2, which I also like the higher version on those. So you put those 3 together, you might find yourself a nice little Christmas cash there if you do that. Again, gamble responsibly, so on and so forth. Don't do anything that you can't do, so on.
Pick
Um,
wisely.
so that gives you some options there. I do think it'll be interesting to see also what they do with the motions when it comes to Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown and putting some of those DBs, especially with Joey Porter out, in some situations where they have to make calls because they like to do some pass off stuff, like the Eagles do in some instances where we saw Andy take advantage of that with Corn Dog and with a couple of the other things that they do. This is a game that they need to win. The one thing that I think I'm most worried about overall, Russell Wilson throws moonballs, and he's really good at it. He's been really
He
good at it
does.
for a long time. That's like his best trait, is throwing up the 45-yard, I hope you get there and catch it ball that's 35 yards in the air.
Yeah.
The secondary has had some issues with that. Not necessarily not being there, but not getting the ball skills or knocking the ball down or getting to the football or whatnot. Now, not the last couple of weeks, but most of the year. So that's an interesting thing. George Pickens changes their dynamic on offense a little bit. Those are kind of the matchups I'm looking at. And then obviously, of course, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith against this offensive line will be another tall task for this offensive line. So the run game, I think, is important. The edge run game and what they do from a motion perspective on the offense is important. And then the defense, what it looks like if Chris Jones doesn't go is going to be interesting.
Yeah, without Chris Jones would be a challenge in a lot of ways. I kind of expect them to come in to this game with the mentality of it's a business trip, playoff kind of attitude, lock up your spot, and then you can take a break. Then you can catch your breath. So handle your business first and go from there. I'm sure that's been the messaging from Andy, from the team. We don't want to worry next week. We want to keep our destiny is in our hands. Let's keep it that way. And again, this is a chance to show some of that championship DNA. You've got the lead, you don't give it up. Same thing with the positioning. So, want a clean game, want a healthy game. I think that Chris Jones is the biggest one. Obviously, Jawan Taylor, you hear different things. It sounds like maybe they'll at least try to give him a go. But I will also add that I thought Wanye, like you said earlier, looked much better at right tackle. Still a tough matchup, but has always seemed to be more natural there. Chris Jones is the biggest one, man. If you let him go or you don't go, I can understand it both ways. That can also be a deciding factor. But I will shout out, Turk Wharton has been awesome this year. George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu back. You have enough guys up front where you can kind of rotate through and have some different looks. And even Felix has been pretty strong, at least at setting the edge. Maybe still not there fully as a pass rusher in some ways, but he's been strong at the point of attack, stronger than I think he's looked before. You can, bring Leo in, push him down a little bit.
If Chris is out, Mike Pennell becomes a huge key.
Yeah, because that's going to be your guy who's going to really work that run. And Derek Notty's still out there, still got
that's fine.
Got a shot.
Mike Pennell is your movement piece on if Chris cannot go. First and second down are going to be Mike Pennell downs. I don't know what's going to be around him necessarily, but Mike Pennell is going to be a lot of your answer in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, I ultimately want to see again people get out of there, get out of the game unscathed. We want to get the win. It's a tough balance to make. So,
all right, let's get into score predictions because it is nearing just after 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and I'm sure all 50 or 51 of you that are hanging out with probably have things to do this evening. We appreciate everybody for hanging out.
You being here for real.
Before we do the score predictions, if you missed it, I know there was only a few of you in here. We're going to be doing a giveaway starting tomorrow for this guy right here, Justin Reed print from our friend Corey Artist Chief. We will put all the details and everything out on socials. Don't worry about me. I'm knocking stuff off my desk while I'm trying to show you guys things. Putting everything out on socials, kind of get that rolling tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. I hope tomorrow might be the day after. It just kind of depends on what life brings us all. But we will have that giveaway up. And then with that said, the game predictions. Right now, the current spread is Kansas City -2.5 on the road in Pittsburgh, and the over/under is set at 43.5. Tom, what you got for us?
43 and a half. That's a. Um. Yeah, I think that's it would be pretty close to that. I'm thinking 24-17 Chiefs. Um, it could be a lot closer. Russ always looks good against us, even when he was with the Broncos and he looked terrible against everybody. Um,
We
I
are the Super Bowl. We are the Super Bowl for
Yep, we
everyone.
are their Super Bowl. I I still think they have a level of seriousness about this game. I know the AFC North is tough and competitive and all of that, but um, and Pittsburgh's playing for purpose. I get that, but the Chiefs have been locked in on their goal this whole year, even with some of the shortcomings, even with some of the challenges they've had. It would be weird to me to see them walk in this game and lay down, at the finish line. So I think they get the W. I think we're looking, um, you know, like I said, I'm changing. I'm gonna go 27. I'm gonna give them an extra field goal. I'm gonna give them a little bit more breathing room. You know, I think that we'll see a really complete defensive performance. Want to shout out again the young corners, Josh Williams and Nazi Johnson, who were getting roasted a couple of weeks ago. Looks like they've got their confidence back. Look like they're being utilized to their strengths. And obviously we talked about Jaden Hicks. So I'm going to go 27-17 Kansas City.
Okay. So I've got it's close. It's a similar-ish score. I feel like we're gonna be in that same realm. I think Steelers kick a bunch of field goals at points. I think they're gonna be about 16 points, not 17. I don't think they get 2 touchdowns in this game. I think they
Mhm.
probably get one and kick 3 or 4 field goals, and we go from there. With the Steelers, I think the touchdown they score is probably a big play, moon ball, whatever, to get them at least down there if it doesn't get them to the end zone. So, um, I do think this offense, with the way it's currently constructed, if they do quick passing game and they do a lot of that end around and a lot of that other stuff, that takes away some of the concern with TJ Watt and with Alex Highsmith, especially with a more beat up secondary and some questions at linebacker for the Steelers team. That is not to say that this Steelers team is not going to be tough. Mike Tomlin is a heck of a football coach. You don't do what he's done in this league for as long as he's done it. I don't think he's ever had a losing record. I think if I remember correctly, it's always been either 500 or above for him. Um, they're going to be tough. It's going to be a battle because they're also fighting for division stuff, playoff stuff, seeding. It matters for both teams, but as Tom mentioned, this team, Kansas City, has had goals on their mind all year. The first one was win the AFC West. The second one was get the 1 seed. They've battled the last few weeks, especially, to make sure that they continue that 1 seed ever since the Buffalo game. There's been a renewed focus. It seems like a renewed energy. They're getting healthier. They're getting guys back, and they're starting to gel. I think you're going to see a 28-16 game here. I think Kansas City scores some touchdowns. They could get to 30. Every time I say they're going to get to 30, they don't. So I'm not going to say they get to 30 this time. I'm going to roll 28-16, and I think the defense has a good day regardless of whether or not Chris plays. Obviously, if Chris plays, it'll be huge. It's a big deal. But and you could see Pittsburgh get a few more points if Chris doesn't play. They may get 20. They may get a couple of touchdowns and a couple of field
Mhm.
goals. So those are they're up there for options. But I do think Kansas City gets it done, locks up the 1 seed, makes all the conversation about Denver non-existent for them, and lets the Bengals cry about it in their cereal. And that's kind of how I'm at. Make sure you guys check us out. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, on all the podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. You're going to want to follow us to be able to get in on this print. With all that said, we want to say have a great holiday. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We wish hopefully to see you guys before the New Year because we will be back before then. But
Mhm.
If we do not, and you guys miss us until then, happy New Year as well. And with that, you guys, I think we're gonna get out of here. Tom, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Be responsible. Hit up your Uber drivers.
Yeah,
If you're partaking out and about, same thing. If we don't see you before New Year's, Happy New Year's. Enjoy time with your families. Take care of yourselves. If you're spending the holidays alone and all that, that's okay too. I've been there.
yep,
Just that PSA of, hey, sometimes life just kind of happens. Um, I know can be a tough time of year for mental health and for people. Um, we've said it before in the last couple of weeks, but just a reminder: take care of yourself. Reach out to your friends. Check on your friends.
yeah, that
But
too.
most of all, yeah, enjoy the season. Enjoy time with family. Take the time to reach out. Let people know what they mean to you. And go Chiefs.
And hopefully we have a happier Christmas than we did last year, because
Yes.
last year's was unfun. All right,
Yes.
guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, tuning in, checking everything out. Again, like, comment, subscribe, share on all your social media platforms, and we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.